The morning sun painted London's sky a soft golden color as thousands of people gathered outside Buckingham Palace. Today was special. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations were about to begin, and everyone knew Prince William and Princess Kate would make an appearance. Children pressed their faces against the metal barriers, waving small British flags and wearing paper crowns they had made at school. Among the crowd, a familiar figure stood quietly near the palace gates. Paddington Bear, the beloved character from children's books and movies, had been invited to join the festivities. He wore his signature blue duffel coat and red hat, looking every bit as charming as he did in the stories. But this wasn't just any ordinary appearance. Today, Paddington was here for something very important. The organizers had planned a special surprise. They wanted to honor the Queen's love for tea and marmalade, two things that Paddington knew very well. The famous bear had been asked to present a jar of his finest marmalade to the royal family. It seemed like a simple task, but everyone who knew Paddington understood that his adventures never went exactly as planned. Sarah Thompson, a royal event coordinator, checked her clipboard nervously. She had been working on this event for months, making sure every detail was perfect. The timing had to be just right. Prince William and Princess Kate were scheduled to arrive at exactly 10:30 in the morning, and Paddington's presentation would happen 15 minutes later. "Has anyone seen where Paddington went?" Sarah asked her assistant, Mark, who was busy adjusting the red carpet that had been rolled out for the royal couple. Mark looked around the crowded area. "He was right here a minute ago, talking to some children about his adventures in Peru." Meanwhile, behind the palace walls, Prince William was adjusting his tie in front of a mirror. He had always enjoyed these public events, especially when children were involved. There was something magical about seeing young faces light up with excitement. Princess Kate stood beside him, smoothing down her elegant blue dress that perfectly matched the morning sky. "I heard there's a special guest today," Kate said with a smile. "Apparently, Paddington Bear will be joining us." William chuckled. "That should be interesting. Remember when we watched those movies with the children? They absolutely love them." Outside, the crowd was growing larger by the minute. Parents lifted their children onto their shoulders so they could get a better view. Street vendors sold hot tea and sandwiches, filling the air with delicious smells. Everyone was in a festive mood, sharing stories and making new friends while they waited. Mrs. Eleanor Davies, an elderly woman who had been coming to royal events for over 40 years, stood near the front of the crowd. She clutched a small Union Jack flag and wore her best hat, the one with tiny pearls around the rim. "I've never missed a royal celebration," she told the young mother standing next to her. "But this is the first time I've seen Paddington Bear at one." The young mother, Jessica, bounced her 3-year-old daughter Emma in her arms. Emma was wearing a Paddington Bear costume that her grandmother had sewn for her. "Paddington is Emma's favorite character," Jessica explained. "She's been practicing saying 'please look after this bear' all week." As the clock tower chimed 10:15, excitement rippled through the crowd. Royal guards in their distinctive red uniforms and tall black hats took their positions. The palace doors would open soon, and the royal couple would emerge to greet their subjects. Back in the preparation area, Sarah finally spotted Paddington. He was sitting on a small bench, carefully polishing the jar of marmalade he would present to the royals. The jar was wrapped in a beautiful blue ribbon, and attached to it was a small card written in Paddington's neat handwriting. "Paddington," Sarah called out, hurrying over to him. "We need to get you in position. Their Royal Highnesses will be out any moment." Paddington stood up and tipped his red hat politely. "I do hope I haven't caused any trouble," he said in his distinctive, gentle voice. "I was just making sure the marmalade jar looked its very best." Aunt Lucy always said that presentation is very important when meeting important people. Sarah couldn't help but smile. Despite all the chaos that usually followed Paddington wherever he went, there was something incredibly endearing about his earnest desire to do the right thing. "You look perfect, Paddington. Just remember, when their Royal Highnesses approach, you bow slightly and wait for them to speak first." Paddington nodded seriously, practicing his bow. Unfortunately, his hat slipped forward over his eyes, and he stumbled slightly, catching himself just in time. Sarah held her breath, but Paddington simply straightened his hat and smiled. "Practice makes perfect," he said cheerfully. The crowd suddenly erupted in cheers. The palace doors had opened, and Prince William and Princess Kate stepped out into the morning sunlight. They both waved at the enthusiastic crowd, their faces bright with genuine smiles. William looked handsome in his dark blue suit, while Kate was absolutely radiant in her carefully chosen outfit. As they walked toward the waiting crowd, photographers snapped hundreds of pictures. The sound of camera shutters mixed with the cheers and applause of the people. Children called out their names, and both William and Kate took time to wave specifically at the youngest members of the crowd. Paddington watched from his designated spot, holding his jar of marmalade carefully. His heart was beating a little faster than usual. He had met many important people during his adventures, but meeting real royalty was something special. He thought about Aunt Lucy back in Peru and how proud she would be to know that her nephew was about to meet a prince and princess. The royal couple moved gracefully through the crowd, stopping to chat with various people. William knelt down to talk to a little boy who was dressed as a palace guard, complete with a toy sword. Kate accepted a bouquet of flowers from a group of schoolgirls and complimented their beautiful drawings of the royal family. As they got closer to Paddington's area, Sarah felt her nervousness increase. She had coordinated many royal events, but somehow having Paddington involved made everything feel more unpredictable. She whispered a quick prayer that everything would go smoothly. Paddington, meanwhile, was watching the royal couple with growing admiration. He could see how genuinely they cared about the people who had come to see them. Prince William's laugh was warm and infectious when he joked with an elderly gentleman about the weather. Princess Kate's attention was completely focused on each person she spoke with, making them feel special and valued. "They seem very nice," Paddington murmured to himself, adjusting his grip on the marmalade jar. "I do hope they like orange marmalade." Uncle Pastuzzo always said that you can tell a lot about a person by whether they appreciate good marmalade. The moment was almost here. Soon, Prince William and Princess Kate would reach Paddington's area, and the real adventure would begin. Prince William and Princess Kate were now just a few steps away from where Paddington stood waiting. The crowd around them had grown even more excited, with people pushing gently forward to get a better look at their beloved royals. Children were calling out, hoping to catch their attention, while parents held up phones to capture the magical moment. Sarah gave Paddington one final encouraging nod before stepping back to give him space. The famous bear straightened his duffel coat and made sure his hat was sitting properly on his head. In his paws, he held the jar of marmalade so carefully that his knuckles were white with concentration. As the royal couple approached, something unexpected happened. A small gust of wind swept through the area, catching Princess Kate's elegant scarf and lifting it into the air. Without thinking, Paddington immediately stepped forward and, with the reflexes that had saved him from countless mishaps during his adventures, caught the scarf before it could float away. "Oh my goodness, thank you so much," Princess Kate said, genuinely surprised and delighted. She looked down at the polite bear who was already offering her scarf back with a proper bow. Prince William, who had been watching the whole scene, broke into a wide grin. "Well, that was perfectly timed," he said to Paddington. "I don't think we've been formally introduced. I'm William, and this is Catherine." Paddington's eyes widened with excitement. He had practiced this moment many times, but he hadn't expected it to begin quite like this. "Pleased to meet you, Your Royal Highnesses," he said, attempting another bow. This time, however, his nervousness got the better of him, and the jar of marmalade slipped from his paws. The crowd gasped as the jar tumbled through the air. Time seemed to slow down as everyone watched, including Prince William, who instinctively reached out to try to catch it. But it was Princess Kate who surprised everyone. Moving with quick grace, she caught the jar just inches from the ground. "Excellent catch," William said to his wife, clearly impressed. "Though I have to ask, what's in this beautifully wrapped jar?" Paddington's face turned slightly pink with embarrassment, but his natural honesty shone through. "It's my very best orange marmalade, Your Royal Highness. I made it myself, following Aunt Lucy's special recipe. I brought it as a gift for you and Her Majesty the Queen, though I'm afraid I nearly made quite a mess of things just now." Princess Kate examined the jar with genuine interest. The handwritten label was decorated with tiny drawings of oranges and bears. "This is absolutely lovely, Paddington. Did you really make this yourself?" "Oh, yes," Paddington replied, his confidence returning. "Though I must admit, I had a few accidents along the way. Mrs. Bird says my kitchen adventures are quite memorable, though not always in a good way." The crowd around them was listening to every word, completely charmed by the conversation. Children were giggling at Paddington's honesty about his kitchen mishaps, while adults smiled at the genuine warmth of the interaction. Prince William leaned down to get closer to Paddington's eye level. "You know, we're quite fond of marmalade in our family. Our children love it on their toast in the morning. I'm sure they would be thrilled to try some made by the famous Paddington Bear himself." "You have children?" Paddington asked with interest. "How wonderful. I do hope they like stories. I have so many adventures I could tell them about, though perhaps not the ones where I accidentally flooded the bathroom or got stuck in a tube station." Princess Kate laughed, a sound so warm and musical that even more people in the crowd began to smile. "They would absolutely love to hear your stories, Paddington. Perhaps we could arrange something in the future." As they continued talking, a small commotion started near the edge of the crowd. A little girl, no more than 5 years old, had somehow slipped past the barriers and was running toward them. She was wearing a yellow raincoat and clutching a small stuffed Paddington bear. "Paddington," she called out in a sweet, high voice. "It's really you." Security guards immediately moved to intercept her, but Prince William held up a gentle hand to stop them. "It's all right," he said calmly. "Let her come through." The little girl, whose name was Lucy coincidentally, stopped just in front of Paddington and looked up at him with enormous brown eyes full of wonder. "I knew you were real," she whispered. "Mummy said you were just in stories, but I knew you were real." Paddington knelt down, so he was the same height as little Lucy. "Well, of course I'm real," he said kindly. "And what a lovely name you have. I had an Aunt Lucy who was very special to me. Did she like marmalade too?" Lucy asked, still clutching her stuffed bear. "She loved marmalade," Paddington replied. "In fact, she's the one who taught me how to make it. She always said that sharing marmalade was like sharing a little bit of sunshine." Princess Kate watched this interaction with obvious delight. She could see her own children in this little girl's face, the same wonder and belief in magic that made childhood so precious. "Lucy," she said gently to the little girl, "would you like to help us taste Paddington's marmalade?" The child's eyes grew even wider. "Really? You want me to help?" "Absolutely," Prince William said. "After all, you're clearly an expert on Paddington Bear. We need someone who really knows about these things." Sarah, the event coordinator, quickly produced some small spoons and napkins. She had learned long ago that royal events often took unexpected turns, and it was always best to be prepared for anything. As she handed out the supplies, she couldn't help but smile at how perfectly everything was working out, despite the initial mishaps. Paddington carefully opened the jar of marmalade, revealing its beautiful orange color and perfect consistency. The sweet, citrusy smell filled the air, making several people nearby breathe in deeply with appreciation. "This smells absolutely wonderful," Princess Kate said, taking a small taste. Her expression immediately brightened with surprise and pleasure. "Paddington, this is exceptional. The flavor is so fresh and bright." Prince William tried some as well and nodded with approval. "This is definitely going to be a favorite in our household. You've really outdone yourself." Little Lucy, meanwhile, had taken her tiny taste and was practically glowing with happiness. "It tastes like sunshine," she announced to everyone around them. Just like Paddington said. The crowd, who had been watching this entire exchange with growing delight, burst into spontaneous applause. What had started as a formal royal appearance was turning into something much more special, a genuine moment of connection and joy that no one would ever forget. The applause from the crowd was still echoing when something even more remarkable began to happen. Other children in the audience, inspired by little Lucy's brave approach, started calling out to Paddington and the royal couple. What had begun as a formal presentation was transforming into an impromptu gathering filled with laughter and genuine connection. Princess Kate noticed a group of children near the barriers who were holding up drawings they had made. "William," she said quietly, "look at all those wonderful pictures. Should we go see them?" Prince William followed her gaze and smiled. "Absolutely. Paddington, would you like to join us? I think these children would love to meet you properly." Paddington's face lit up with excitement. "That would be wonderful. I do so enjoy meeting young people. They always have such interesting questions." Together, the three of them approached the barriers where dozens of children were now holding up their artwork. The drawings showed everything from Paddington having tea with the Queen to Prince William and Princess Kate riding in a carriage made of marmalade jars. The creativity and enthusiasm of the young artist was absolutely infectious. 8-year-old James Henderson pushed forward with his drawing of Paddington wearing a tiny crown. "I drew this for you," he said shyly to Paddington. "I thought you might like to be a royal bear." Paddington examined the picture carefully, his expression serious and thoughtful. "This is truly magnificent, James. I'm particularly impressed with how you've drawn the crown. It looks exactly the right size for a bear's head, which is much trickier than people might think." "Really?" James asked, his shyness melting away. "I practiced drawing crowns for weeks." Princess Kate leaned in to look at the picture as well. "James, this is absolutely beautiful. You're quite the artist. Have you thought about taking art classes?" Before James could answer, another child spoke up. 10-year-old Sophia Chun was holding a more elaborate drawing that showed Paddington teaching the royal family how to make sandwiches. "Paddington," she called out, "in your stories, you're always getting into trouble in the kitchen. Do you really burn things as much as the books say?" Paddington chuckled, a sound that made several adults in the crowd smile. "I'm afraid I do have quite a talent for kitchen mishaps, Sophia. Just last week, I tried to make a birthday cake for Mrs. Brown and somehow managed to cover the entire ceiling with flour. Though I must say, the cake itself turned out rather well in the end." Prince William laughed heartily at this confession. "That sounds like some of my own early attempts at cooking. Catherine is much better in the kitchen than I am." "Oh, I'm sure you're not that bad," Princess Kate protested playfully. "Though I do remember that time you tried to make scrambled eggs and somehow managed to scramble them before they even reached the pan." The children giggled at this royal admission, delighted to learn that even princes could have kitchen disasters. Paddington nodded knowingly. Cooking is much more complicated than it appears in recipe books. They never mention what to do when the ingredients seem to have minds of their own. As more children shared their artwork and stories, something beautiful was happening in the crowd. Adults who had come simply to see the royals were now engaged in conversations with each other, sharing their own memories of reading Paddington stories to their children or grandchildren. The formal atmosphere of a royal event was giving way to something much more personal and community-oriented. Mrs. Eleanor Davies, the elderly woman who had attended royal events for decades, found herself talking to Jessica and her daughter Emma. "I remember when the first Paddington book was published," she told them. "I bought it for my own children, and they absolutely loved it. Now I read it to my great-grandchildren." Emma, still in her homemade Paddington costume, looked up at Mrs. Davies with curiosity. "Do you have a favorite Paddington story?" she asked in her sweet 3-year-old voice. "I think I like the one where he tries to wallpaper the bathroom," Mrs. Davies replied. "Though watching him today, I think this might become my new favorite Paddington story." Meanwhile, Paddington was being shown more and more artwork by the enthusiastic children. Each drawing told a story, and Paddington listened to each explanation with the serious attention that only he could give to a child's creative work. 12-year-old David Kumar had drawn a comic strip showing Paddington and the royal family having a picnic in Hyde Park. "I thought it would be fun if you could all be friends in real life," he explained to Prince William. "You know, David," Prince William said thoughtfully, "I think we're becoming friends in real life. Sometimes the best friendships start in the most unexpected ways." Princess Kate was particularly taken with a drawing by 7-year-old Amelia Rodriguez. The picture showed Paddington helping to plant flowers in the palace gardens, with tiny butterflies flying around his hat. Amelia, this is absolutely gorgeous. Do you like gardening? My granny teaches me about flowers, Amelia replied. She says that gardens are places where magic happens every day. You just have to know how to look for it. Paddington nodded approvingly at this wisdom. Your grandmother sounds very wise, Amelia. I quite agree about gardens being magical. Though I must admit, I once accidentally planted marmalade oranges upside down and couldn't understand why they wouldn't grow. The conversation was interrupted by a gentle commotion near the palace entrance. A small group of palace staff had emerged, carrying a beautiful silver tea service and a selection of delicate sandwiches. Sarah, the event coordinator, hurried over to explain. Your Royal Highnesses, she said slightly breathlessly, the Queen's private secretary thought you might enjoy some refreshments. And when she heard about Paddington's marmalade, she specifically requested that it be included with the tea service. Prince William and Princess Kate exchanged delighted glances. How wonderful, Princess Kate said. Paddington, would you do us the honor of joining us for tea? It seems only fitting, given how important tea time is in your stories. Paddington's eyes grew wide with amazement and gratitude. You would like me to join you for tea? With proper china and everything? Absolutely, Prince William confirmed. Though I should warn you, we're planning to have it right here with all these wonderful children. I hope you don't mind sharing tea time with some new friends. Looking around at all the smiling faces, the beautiful drawings, and the genuine warmth that had filled the morning, Paddington felt his heart swell with happiness. This was turning out to be an even better adventure than any he had experienced before. The palace staff worked quickly to set up a delightful outdoor tea party right there on the palace grounds. White tablecloths were spread on small tables, and the finest china was arranged with military precision. The silver tea service gleamed in the morning sunlight, and the sight of it all made both children and adults gasp with wonder. Paddington watched the preparations with fascination, though he couldn't help feeling slightly nervous. He had attended tea parties before, but never one quite so formal or with such important guests. He discreetly practiced holding his teacup, trying to remember all of Mrs. Brown's lessons about proper tea party behavior. Don't worry, Paddington, Princess Kate said quietly, noticing his concentration. The most important thing about any tea party is enjoying the company. Everything else is just details. Her kind words helped Paddington relax considerably. Aunt Lucy always said something very similar, he replied. She believed that the best tea parties were the ones where everyone felt welcome and comfortable. Prince William was helping the staff arrange extra chairs so that some of the children from the crowd could join them. I think we can fit about 20 children, he told Sarah. Could you help us choose a good mix of ages? The selection process was surprisingly easy, as the children naturally organized themselves. The older ones insisted that the younger ones should get the first chances, while the younger ones wanted to make sure their new friends weren't left out. It was a beautiful display of childish generosity and consideration. Little Lucy, who had started this whole wonderful interaction, was given the seat of honor right next to Paddington. She had been temporarily reunited with her mother, who was standing nearby with tears of joy in her eyes. I can't believe this is really happening, she whispered to another parent. James, the boy who had drawn the crown picture, sat across from Prince William. Sophia, with her elaborate sandwich drawing, was placed next to Princess Kate. The other children filled in around the table, their excitement barely contained, but their behavior remarkably polite. As the tea was being poured, Paddington carefully opened his jar of marmalade and began spreading it on small triangular sandwiches. His movements were precise and focused, the result of many years of perfecting his sandwich-making technique. Paddington, asked 9-year-old Oliver, who was sitting nearby, do you really eat marmalade sandwiches for every meal like in the books? Paddington considered this question seriously while continuing to prepare sandwiches. Not every meal, Oliver, though I do enjoy them quite frequently. Sometimes I have porridge for breakfast or Mrs. Bird's excellent stew for dinner. But Marmalade sandwiches are perfect for any time when you need something comforting and familiar. Princess Kate accepted a sandwich from Paddington with genuine appreciation. I think that's wonderful advice. Sometimes the simplest foods are the most comforting. Exactly. Paddington agreed enthusiastically. Uncle Pastizzo used to say that food made with care tastes better than the fanciest meals made without love. Prince William raised his teacup in a small toast to Paddington for reminding us that the best gatherings are the ones that bring people together. The children giggled and raised their own cups, though several of them were drinking apple juice instead of tea. To Paddington, they chorused, their voices creating a sweet harmony that made the adults smile. As they enjoyed their refreshments, the conversation flowed naturally from topic to topic. The children asked Paddington about his adventures, while he inquired about their schools, hobbies, and favorite books. Prince William and Princess Kate joined in seamlessly, treating each child as if their opinions and stories were the most important things in the world. 12-year-old Sarah Kim, who had been quietly observing everything, finally spoke up. Your Royal Highnesses, do you think stories like Paddington's are important? Do they help people in real life? Princess Kate smiled at the thoughtful question. I think they're incredibly important, Sarah. Stories teach us about kindness, acceptance, and how to treat others with respect. Paddington's stories specifically show us that being different can be wonderful, and that home is anywhere you're loved and accepted. Paddington nodded earnestly. I was quite different when I first arrived in London. I didn't know the customs or the proper way to do things. But the Browns welcomed me anyway and helped me learn. I think that's something everyone deserves. Prince William added, and Paddington's adventures also teach us that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're trying your best and willing to learn from them. That's a lesson that's valuable for children and adults alike. As if summoned by the mention of mistakes, a small mishap occurred. 7-year-old Timothy, while reaching for another sandwich, accidentally knocked over his cup of apple juice. The liquid splashed across the white tablecloth and began dripping onto his lap. Instead of being upset or embarrassed, Timothy looked around the table with wide eyes. I've made a Paddington-style accident, he announced with a mixture of worry and amusement. Paddington immediately stood up with his napkin. Don't worry, Timothy. I'm quite experienced with this sort of thing. With practiced efficiency, he helped clean up the spill while maintaining a cheerful demeanor. The trick is to act quickly, but not panic. Spills happen to everyone, especially at tea parties. Princess Kate and Prince William both helped with the cleanup, showing no concern about the minor accident. Their calm, helpful response made Timothy feel better immediately, and soon everyone was laughing about the authentic Paddington experience. Prince William said as they finished cleaning up, I think this might be the most enjoyable royal tea party we've ever attended. Really? Asked Emma, Jessica's daughter, who had been unusually quiet while taking in all the wonderful sights and sounds. Really? Princess Kate confirmed. The best events are always the ones where unexpected things happen and new friendships are made. As the tea party continued, photographers from the Royal Press Office discreetly captured moments of genuine joy and connection. But the real magic wasn't in the pictures they were taking. It was in the atmosphere of acceptance, kindness, and pure happiness that surrounded the tables. Paddington, looking around at all the smiling faces, felt a deep sense of contentment. This was exactly the kind of adventure that Aunt Lucy would have loved to hear about. Not because it involved meeting royalty, but because it was about people from different backgrounds coming together and discovering how much they had in common. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows across the palace grounds, everyone could sense that this magical tea party was drawing to a close. But the warmth and joy that had been created would linger in everyone's hearts for years to come. Princess Kate stood up gracefully and addressed the children who had joined them. This has been absolutely wonderful, but I know some of you need to get home to your families. Before we say goodbye, though, we have a small surprise. Prince William nodded to Sarah, who had been coordinating with the palace staff throughout the event. She approached with a beautiful wooden box that bore the royal coat of arms. Paddington, Prince William said with a formal but warm tone, we would be honored if you would accept this small token of appreciation for bringing such joy to this day. Paddington accepted the box with trembling paws, his eyes wide with amazement. Inside, nestled in soft velvet, was an exquisite silver marmalade spoon engraved with his initials and a tiny crown. Alongside, it was an official letter with a royal seal. Read it aloud, Paddington encouraged little Lucy, who was still sitting beside him. Paddington adjusted his spectacles and read in his clear, careful voice, by royal appointment, Paddington Bear is hereby recognized as an official friend of the royal family, with special acknowledgement of his exceptional marmalade-making skills and his gift for bringing people together. Signed, William and Catherine. The crowd that had been watching this entire extraordinary event erupted in the loudest applause of the day. Children cheered, adults wiped away happy tears, and even the usually stoic palace guards were smiling broadly. There's more, Princess Kate said with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. We spoke with the Queen's private secretary, and Her Majesty would very much like to invite you for a proper tea party in the palace next week. She's particularly interested in learning your marmalade recipe. Paddington's hat nearly fell off his head in surprise. The Queen wants to learn my recipe? But surely the royal kitchens have much better recipes than a bear from Peru could offer. I think you'll find, Prince William said with a knowing smile, that the Queen appreciates authenticity and genuine kindness above all else. Your marmalade, and more importantly, your character, have made quite an impression. As the formal part of the gathering began to wind down, something beautiful happened. The children who had participated in the tea party began exchanging contact information with their parents' help. Friendships had been formed that would extend far beyond this single day. Mrs. Eleanor Davies approached Paddington with a worn leather photo album. I've been bringing this to royal events for 40 years, she told him. It contains pictures from every royal celebration I've attended. Would you mind if I asked their royal highnesses to sign it, and perhaps you could add your paw print? I would be delighted, Paddington replied, carefully making his mark next to the royal signatures. Though I hope my paw print doesn't smudge their beautiful writing. James, the boy with the crown drawing, tugged gently on Paddington's coat. Paddington, will you really come back to visit? Or will this be like a fairy tale that only happens once? Paddington knelt down to James's level, his expression serious but kind. James, I've learned that the very best adventures are the ones that continue long after the story seems to end. I have a feeling that this is just the beginning of a wonderful friendship with all of you. Princess Kate overheard this conversation and added, James, I promise you that this isn't the end. In fact, we're thinking about starting regular story times at some of the community centers in London. Perhaps Paddington would like to be our special guest reader. The suggestion sparked immediate excitement among the children. Sophia raised her hand as if she were in school. Could we help choose the stories? And maybe sometimes we could act them out. Those are excellent ideas, Prince William agreed. We'll definitely explore those possibilities. As families began to gather their belongings and prepare to leave, each child made sure to say a personal goodbye to Paddington. Some hugged him gently, others shook his paw formally, and a few simply waved shyly. But every single one of them left with a smile that showed they knew they had experienced something truly special. Timothy, the boy who had spilled his apple juice, approached Paddington one last time. Thank you for helping me clean up my mess, he said quietly. My mom says I'm very clumsy, but you made me feel like it was okay. Paddington's heart swelled with emotion. Timothy, everyone makes messes sometimes. What matters is how we handle them and how we help each other. You handled yours beautifully. As the last of the families departed, Paddington found himself alone with Prince William and Princess Kate. The three of them stood together, looking out at the now empty space where so much joy had been shared. Paddington, Princess Kate said softly, thank you for reminding us why we love doing this. Sometimes royal duties can feel quite formal and distant. Today you helped us connect with people in a way that felt completely natural and genuine. Prince William nodded in agreement. You have a gift for bringing out the best in people, Paddington. We're genuinely grateful to have met you. Paddington tipped his hat politely, but his usual formal response was replaced by something more heartfelt. Your Royal Highnesses, I came here today hoping to give you a jar of marmalade. Instead, you've given me something much more valuable. You've shown me that kindness and warmth exist at every level of society, and that the most important title anyone can have is friend. As Paddington made his way back toward the palace gates, he could hear Prince William and Princess Kate discussing plans for future community events. Their enthusiasm for including more children in royal activities was clear, and Paddington felt proud to have played a part in inspiring these new ideas. The crowd that had gathered that morning had long since dispersed, but the impact of the day would ripple outward in countless ways. Children would go home and tell their families about meeting Paddington and the royals. Parents would remember the importance of believing in magic and wonder. And somewhere in Peru, if Aunt Lucy could have seen it all, she would have been tremendously proud of her nephew. As Paddington walked through the London streets toward home, his special marmalade spoon safely tucked in his coat pocket, and his heart full of new friendships, he reflected on the day's events. He had started the morning as simply Paddington Bear. He was ending it as Paddington Bear, official friend of the royal family, and, more importantly, a bridge between different worlds who had helped create a little more kindness in the world. Mrs. Brown would certainly want to hear every detail of this adventure, and Mr. Brown would probably insist on framing the royal letter. But for now, Paddington was content to walk slowly through his beloved London, savoring the memory of a perfect day when marmalade, mishaps, and genuine human connection had combined to create something truly magical.